What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show today. And let's see, my levels are just a little too hot here. Anyway, welcome back to the show. As you know, yesterday's show was interrupted right in the middle. And I went away to take a break during a commercial, and I came back to utter silence, no response from the control room, no response to the phones. And my first assumption was, this is it. RBN has run out of money, and we're off the air, and I got to start looking for another platform. But as it turns out, I was wrong. What actually happened was there was a nearby work crew that was digging, and they hit a cable bunch, which included the fiber cable going to the RBN studio. So that's what happened. And as you can obviously tell today, we're back up and running, which doesn't mean that we still don't need your donations to stay on the air. But we are back on the air here. Alrighty, up in New York, they're being hit with the remains of Tropical Storm Barry. One person is dead. The streets are flooded. Water is apparently gushing through the subway stations, and lightning, gusty winds, and apparently the one death was this Connecticut man died after a tree was struck by lightning and a large limb fell onto his car roof, and he was driving on Bridgeport's Park Avenue. So the electrical crews shut down the wires, took a look in the car and said, yep, bad day here. Okay, good news is Jeffrey Epstein was denied bail. A New York federal judge today ordered Jeffrey Epstein held without bail, siding with prosecutors who argued the wealthy financier and accused sex trafficker posed a flight risk. Now, prosecutors made the case for the judge. He was a flight risk, and even though Epstein and his lawyers were putting up the equivalent of a $77 million bond by pledging his house as collateral, the judge said no. Now, one of the claims that was being made by Epstein's attorneys before the judge was that following his stint in prison, in county jail down in Florida, that Epstein had reformed and he had seen the error of his ways. But apparently, according to lawyer Bradley Edwards, Epstein has actually continued improper sexual contact following his term in prison. And apparently has had inappropriate contact with some women as recently as 2011. So I'm sure that will figure heavily in his upcoming trial. Okay, we had a caller who called about this yesterday, where Rand Paul has apparently proposed to Donald Trump that he should take a larger role in negotiating with Iran, and Trump apparently supported the idea in order to prevent another endless war from starting in the Middle East, because Trump is beginning to understand, as he gets ready to run next year, endless wars are an election loser. Okay. Paul Rand wants to sit down with Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif in order to ease tensions with the Islamic Republic, which has been confirmed by 4 U.S. officials, according to Politico. This news has enraged the neocon war hawks in the Trump administration, who want a wedge to remain between the two nations, preventing any talks. So this is going to be a little bit interesting. Apparently, over just off the coast of Iran, multiple U.S. Air Force aircraft, including a B-52 strategic bomber, have joined the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea for a simulated strike operation exercise to prepare to take on Iran, quote, when called upon, end quote. And the drills witnessed FA-18 Super Hornets, MH-60 Seahawk helicopters, E-2D Growlers from the USS Abraham Lincoln, mastering joint maneuvers to improve their operational tactics in several warfare areas. The U.S. Naval Forces Central Command said on Sunday. Among other joint training evolutions, the U.S. Air Force participated in strike coordination and reconnaissance exercises. Now, obviously, with that much hardware out there, just off their coast, Iran is going to be curious. And so Iran did send a reconnaissance drone out to the Strait of Hormuz, where it was promptly shot down by the USS Boxer in what is claimed to be a defensive action, because the drone approached to within 1,000 yards and ignored multiple calls to stand down. Now, here is an interesting little question. There's nobody in a drone unless you've got the radio frequency of the remote operator. How do you call for it to stand down? Anyway, just a thought. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Over in China, they're getting ready to ban doing business with any firms that are selling weapons to Taiwan. And China considers Taiwan sovereign territory. They view it as a breakaway province to eventually be reunited with the mainland, if necessary, by force. So China's ruling authorities call incursions by U.S. warships in the Taiwan Strait provocative. This is the 110-mile wide waterway separating Taiwan from the mainland. They consider U.S. arms sales to Taiwan a hostile act. China's Defense Minister Wei Feng earlier was unequivocal, saying the nation's military will firmly defend China's national sovereignty, security, and developmental interest. So China is very upset over the Trump administration's approval to sell about $2.2 billion worth of weapons to Taiwan, including Abrams tanks, Hercules armored vehicles, heavy equipment transporters, and Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. Okay, Pentagon has confirmed that Turkey has been removed from the F-35. Word has gotten out what a very expensive, not performing all that well aircraft it is. So the countries they already have as partners, Trump wants to hang on to them. And Turkey was this potential customer. So this is a punishment for Turkey buying the Russian S-400. Up in Afghanistan, there was apparently an inside attack yesterday when an Afghan soldier shot and killed the commander of the Afghan Army's 3rd Division, Colonel Mateen Mutjaba, in the Ghazni province. Now, Afghan officials reported this was an insider attack, saying the soldier who killed the colonel was a Taliban insider and was himself killed when other troops returned fire during the shooting. So the Taliban confirmed the attacker was theirs, but also claimed that U.S. soldiers were killed in the insider attacks. U.S. officials are not confirming any such casualties, which sounds to me like it may have actually happened here. And an Afghan regional governor said 25 members of the country's elite commando units have been killed in fighting with the Taliban. Boy, those Taliban are tough after all these years. Apparently, this occurred on July 15th in the northern province of Badghis, which is the latest in which specially trained Afghan military units have suffered unusually high death tolls. Now, in comments to RFE-RL, Badghis Governor Abdul Ghaffar Malazki blamed a lack of coordination as the main reason for the deaths of the commandos. He did not elaborate. He also said that more than 20 Taliban militants were killed in the clashes. Qari Yusuf Ahmadi, a Taliban spokesman, said that at least 39 commandos were killed, and he said the militants also captured 16 soldiers. So apparently there's a lot of Taliban activity up there. Down in South America, the Trump administration has informed Congress that they are going to divert $40 million in humanitarian aid that was destined to go to other South American countries, and instead they're going to use it to try and revive Juan Guaido's opposition to Maduro with it. And this is going to be money used to pay salaries and other expenses. Basically, they're saying it's the Guaido government budget. And USAID is arguing that the funding of Guaido is in the U.S. national interest, while Maduro criticized the vote as more proof that Guaido is just a U.S.-funded puppet. So I thought that was finally starting to die down, but apparently not. Apparently not. Okay. Here in the United States, university students who criticize Israel are under attack. Now, if you are my age, you will remember a time back in the 70s and the 80s when students were at the forefront of important movements advocating for fundamental change. There was the anti-apartheid movement that gained traction on university campuses in Britain and the United States. All these demonstrations taking place and calls to divest from companies doing business in apartheid South Africa. At the University of California, Berkeley, students were successful in campaigning for divestment, and in 1986, the university voted to withdraw $3.1 billion of investment in the apartheid state. This eventually led to a success. Apartheid South Africa is no longer there, and it's because students took the initiative to gather and organize for change in conjunction with the university administration being open to what students had to say and acting accordingly. Now, if UC Berkeley back then had deemed the movement too controversial or polarizing, like they're doing today with criticism with Israel, and tried to suppress it, students would not have been able to take a meaningful stand, and apartheid South Africa would still exist. But that's exactly what's going on. That same spirit of freedom to criticize and discuss no longer exists. The university administrations are just fierce defenders of the status quo, and the status quo is you do not criticize Israel. Okay. Article out of Middle East Monitor. Donald Trump's racist attacks on Democratic members of Congress, which included allegations about their views on Israel, is a dangerous development for Israel. And it's basically saying that this will cause the country more damage than good. It will undermine what Israel has long prided itself on having accomplished, keeping an issue that receives bipartisan support in the halls of Congress. And this article is absolutely right. Israel works to have support on both sides of the aisle. They don't want to be partisan. Looking at what Donald said about the four horsewomen of the apocalypse, I'm in agreement with those who say there really isn't anything racist in it. He was responding to their criticisms of life in the United States of America, saying, if you think you can do better, go back to the country you used to live in and fix it. And I don't think that's necessarily racist. Oh, Senator Rand Paul also says he doesn't think Trump's comments were racist. Alrighty. A U.S. House Democrats resolution in support of the two-state solution of Israel and Palestine has been amended to remove references to the Israeli occupation and settlement activity. This is coming out of the Times of Israel. The amended bill also claims attempts by Palestinians to achieve statehood outside of negotiations with Israel is unacceptable. This is coming from California Democrat Alan Lowenthal. And it's House Resolution 326. It's a largely symbolic resolution that reaffirmed the U.S. commitment to resolving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict through a two-state solution. Well, if you take out comments about the occupation and the settlements, and you out there say that Palestine basically needs Israel's permission to be a state, it's never going to happen. So the original text of the bill highlighted the special relationship between the U.S. and Israel and how the U.S. remains unwavering in its commitment to help Israel address the myriad challenges it faces. It also mentioned the long history of U.S. presidents seeking a two-state solution and how delays to a political solution pose a threat to the ability to maintain a Jewish and democratic state of Israel. Well, there's a good reason why there hasn't been a solution. Israel doesn't want one. Israel doesn't want a two-state solution. They want it all. They want the Palestinians to simply go away. So, possibly in response to getting kicked off the F-35 program, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu yesterday criticized the so-called U.S. deal of the century and emphasized the importance of supporting Palestinian rights. During a speech at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Executive Committee meeting held in Saudi Arabia, Cavusoglu said sustainable peace cannot be achieved by discarding the Palestinians' dignity and ignoring the just and legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people. So, referring to the U.S. economic workshop held in Bahrain last month, he said, economic projects and plans cannot replace the need for dignity, justice, and freedom, and no project can succeed without a just peace. In other words, he's saying, yeah, the U.S. attempts to bribe the Palestinians are not going to work. And he says basically the deal of the century is a deliberate attempt to undermine the two-state solution. Apparently, Israeli settlers are setting up mobile homes in the Jordan Valley on Palestinian lands, of course. And this is reported in Shahab News. Palestinian rights activist Aref Daragma said the mobile homes were set up in Abu Quandul neighborhood located in Al-Mala Valley. He stated that the settlers installed wires around an area called Al-Mermala, to which the settlers opened a street a couple of days ago. So if you have the settlers behaving like that, it does create a bit of a problem. Okay, over in Iraqi Kurdistan, in the city of Erbil, there's been an assassination. 3 people, including the Turkish deputy consul, have been killed in a shooting in this restaurant. The shooting was reported shortly after 2 p.m. local time, took place at a restaurant in an upmarket area of Iraqi Kurdistan's capital city. Now, while local media reported that all 3 victims were officials with the consulate general, Turkey's foreign minister only confirmed the death of 1 diplomat. Okay. It has been 5 years since Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 was shot down over Ukraine. And there's been a lot of accusations and a lot of claims that Russia did it. There's still no evidence that Russia had anything to do with it. I know that the so-called international investigation came out recently with another claim that yes, Russia did it. But again, there was no evidence. They don't know which side the book missile systems came from because Ukraine has them too. All right, we got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, RBN is standing here with our hand out. Apparently, on Monday's show, John Stadmiller was talking about how we're seriously in arrears on our internet bill. And I think that's probably the reason why yesterday when the show fell off the air, I leapt to the conclusion, this was it. We're out of money. Plugs are being pulled, and we're off the air. But fortunately, false alarm, we're back on the air, but that doesn't mean that we're out of trouble. So, and I know everybody is struggling to get by. Claire and I are struggling to get this move accomplished so we can live much more cheaply than we do here in Hawaii. But we do need your help. So the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a debit or credit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so we were talking about flight Malaysian Airlines 17, and boy, Malaysian, oh, wait a minute, we got callers on the line. Let's start with Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Quick, and I'm glad you're feeling well. I know how to get back to Jeffrey Epstein. Take his money and give it to you. Take care. Thank you.
I would be perfectly open to that, and in fact, even just a tiny fraction of his money would make my life a lot better, you know. Anyway, let's go to Don in Iowa. Aloha, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, you're talking about freedom of speech has changed. The rights we used to have are not there, and specifically about this Israel boycott of stuff made. I think the Israel, I forget the acronym. It's the one that
APAC?
the acronym for the boycott of
BDS.
the stuff that's made. I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
BDS.
Yeah, BDS. Sounds almost like that stuff that's marijuana. That's CBS. Anyway, yeah, that's freedom of speech. You can boycott anybody you want to, and it's amazing that has not gone. Nobody's challenging that so far in the courts, because I don't know why. Why aren't they challenging it in the court? It should go to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
The Supreme Court would have to.
Absolutely. It'll never survive a constitutional challenge.
I don't see how it can possibly lose. And Jimmy Carter said that Israel was apartheid. He said he didn't like it because it was apartheid, and it is. It's apartheid, and that's what worked against South Africa's apartheid boycotts of some different kinds. Eventually, they changed. Now, I remember. I don't know if you remember this. It was about a long time ago when I was a kid, but the American Nazi Party used to have some weight. You know, these people that are calling everybody Nazis now. I don't think the American Nazi Party hardly even exists anymore. It's what I understand. I've never been in it, but from what I've read about it, it used to be fairly strong, where they would have Nazis. They had George Lincoln Rockwell, whoever that guy was. They had people that carried their card in their pocket. I'm a Nazi, and they had a march in Chicago.
Yes,
Skokie, remember that? And the group that defended the Nazis said they had freedom to do that, freedom to assemble, freedom to have their demonstration, was the ACLU. Now the ACLU won't do anything. They've changed. The ACLU is politically correct now, so that they can't really be supporting civil liberties since they're PC, they're politically correct. And so that was about the main point I wanted to say. And if you're not going to run for senator, I would like to recommend Peter from Los Angeles. He'd be a good senator. I'd like to see him. I would like to see him debate Nancy Pelosi in and on the campaign trail. I'll let you go, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go, and the phone lines are now open. So apparently, again, looking at Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which vanished pretty much without a trace, apparently French engineer Ghislain Watralos, who lost his wife and 2 of his 3 children in the crash, has been doing that citizens investigation thing and discovered there was an additional 200-pound load that was put on the plane that was not on the official manifest. Don't know what that means, but got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, North Korea is suggesting it might call off its 20-month suspension of nuclear and missile tests because of the summertime U.S. and South Korean military drills that the North views as preparation for an eventual invasion. So the statement by the North's foreign ministry comes during a general deadlock in nuclear talks, but after an extraordinary meeting of the U.S. and North Korean leaders at the Korean border that raised hope that negotiations would soon resume. So the comments about calling off the weapons test moratorium ramps up pressure on the United States ahead of the talks. Okay, the few, the proud, the seriously messed up. Apparently, the Marine Corps has lost more than 25,000 Marines to misconduct over the past decade. And apparently it got really bad. Last year it was 8,000 Marines per year to non-EAS attrition, which I mean end of active service. And apparently a total of 25,336 Marines were kicked out of the Corps between 2009 and 2019. 11,765 were for drug and alcohol offenses, while 13,571 were unspecified misconduct. And basically, Commandant General David Berger says this is changing. This has to change because the cost to replace that many Marines is over $1 billion. Well, they have a problem, and it's not just with the Marine Corps, it's with all the Corps. Nobody wants to enlist. They know a war is coming, and these various branches of the military, they keep lowering their requirements, and they're basically accepting the dregs. And so I'm frankly not surprised the Marine Corps has run into a problem. And I imagine the other branches of the military also have a problem with misbehavior. We certainly know that there's been a problem with some of these Navy crews on these Arleigh Burkes out here in the Pacific not being adequately trained. Okay, Ilhan Omar has introduced a resolution Tuesday that upholds the right to boycott, that reaffirms the right that boycott is a form of peaceful protest protected by the First Amendment. She also explicitly expressed her support for BDS and basically says we're hoping to pressure Israel to respect Palestinian rights the way global grassroots pressure helped end apartheid in South Africa. Well, that would certainly be very, very nice. But unfortunately, South Africa did not have the lock on the U.S. Congress that Israel does. Okay. Alrighty. Now, as you know, yesterday Al Green offered up a resolution to impeach Donald Trump for his comments against the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. That resolution was voted down by a wide margin. They voted to table the resolution, which effectively kills it. But in the aftermath, we're starting to see this impeachment caucus start to form. And there are a lot of Democrats that are out there saying, we don't need a reason, let's just impeach him. So even as Democratic leaders have pushed back against impeachment proceedings, more and more prominent members, including the freshman firebrands who were the target of Trump's Twitter ire of the weekend, have supported the drive. So Green was out there saying the president has committed an impeachable offense. No, he didn't. Tweeting out his opinion, even if it's a personal slight, is not an impeachable offense. All right, looking at the economic news, Christine Lagarde has resigned as head of the International Monetary Fund, and she's going to step down very shortly. It comes ahead of a decision on her nomination to become head of the European Central Bank. So she's just trading jobs, one predatory financial job for another. Okay, we talk about retail Mageddon, and we talk about all the brick and mortar stores that are going out of business. And usually what brick and mortar will stand up and say is, oh, it's all that e-commerce. They're making all the money now. And it's true that Amazon is doing fairly well, but other companies going into e-commerce aren't doing all that well at all. Walmart waded into e-commerce. They're losing money hand over fist. And they started 3 years ago acquiring Jet.com and installing Mark Lohr as the head of U.S. e-commerce. It bought several digitally native brands, including Bonobos and ModCloth, and it successfully attracted new brands to Walmart.com, creating its own brands in-house. But they've spent too much money, and they're not making it back. Now, they're doing a lot of e-commerce with groceries and delivery, but overall in the e-commerce operation, they're losing $1 billion. All right, India says it's working with Russia on de-dollarization of bilateral trade, and they're basically just saying they're going to work on a rupee-ruble trade system to evade U.S. financial sanctions. Apparently, Russia has actually approached the EU about coming on board to evade U.S. sanctions. Venezuela may switch from SWIFT to the Russian payment system to skirt U.S. sanctions. Yeah, all of this sanctions and tariffs and other nonsense, it's just going to turn the world against us. It's going to turn the world against the dollar. Okay, story out of Activist Post. U.S. manufacturing is officially in recession. The once booming industry is struggling to stay alive amid the trade war as production slumped in the second quarter. Tesla has cut the prices on the Model 3 by quite a bit. They're trying to get a new sales push going. They're trying to move the cars. They're suffering from Carmageddon the same as everybody else. I mean, we still have this lot down here at the bottom of the hill. It used to be a 4-screen drive-in movie theater. Then it was a flea market for a while. Now it's being rented out as an overflow lot. It is absolutely jam-packed. Okay. So Tesla's cutting their prices in an hope to stimulate sales here. Apparently, we're seeing a slowdown in the supply chain, which is hardly surprising. Fewer products going into the malls, fewer products being ordered. So far this year, 2,500 truckers have lost their jobs. Now, there may be some experimental driverless trucks out there, but I think they're few and far between. I think it's just there's nothing to drive around anymore. China is going to boost imports of Russian soybeans and cut out U.S. crop exports. So the trade war continues, and our soybean farmers are going to take it in the teeth. All right, let's take a phone call from Paul in Montana. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Rivero. You were just mentioning Walmart. And when was the last time you went into a Walmart at off hours, late evening, early in the morning? Well, when you go into those places late hours, early in the morning, you see all of these affirmative action business administrators running around, and they're all women. And all they're doing is creating chaos. And this thing about soybeans and China exporting all of this Monsanto grain and corn and what have you that we try to export to China is China exporting it back to us as prepared products. Why don't we hear about what's coming out of China? Is it the same stuff that we sent them and can't sell anyplace else? But I mean, Walmart. Go into Walmart and look at all of these, MBAs running around that are trying to look like they're doing something, and they're all women, 30, 35 years old, and they're absolute messes. Total mess. Look at the, I'm going to go back and I have to go smoke something. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the phone call. That was a little bit out there. He did raise one valid question. How much of the... well, first of all, I was under the impression that China rejected our GMO crops to begin with. But if, in fact, they are buying them, are they, in fact, just sending it all back to us in packaged food? All righty. What with the trade war going on, we're not getting that much back from China. Apparently, this illegal immigrant group has staged a protest at Amazon and Jeff Bezos' home against them selling software to ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. They call the group La Resistencia, an illegal immigrant-led far-left organization, and they staged this protest outside Amazon's headquarters to demand they stop selling facial recognition software to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's rather a pointless gesture. The software is just not working out all that well. It's got a very high failure rate. But according to the group's Facebook page, they are a grassroots, undocumented-led movement that works to end the detention of immigrants and stop all deportations. Well, too bad. You are illegal. Apparently, there's an effort in Congress to pass a bill to remove the phrase illegal alien or illegal immigrant from all future laws regarding immigration. But they're illegal. The instant they set that foot over the border, they are illegal. Apparently, there was another illegal immigrant group shut down ICE headquarters in Washington, D.C. Apparently, that one got a little testy and several arrests were made. Take them right to the border. Just take them right to the border. Okay, over in North Carolina, CBS 17 is reporting, apparently there was an illegal alien. Yes, I'm using the word illegal alien in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is a sanctuary city. He has been charged with sexual assault of a 6-year-old child. And so they've arrested him. So thank goodness for illegal immigrants and thank goodness for sanctuary cities, where they can just do what they want to do. Apparently, out in Los Angeles, the Justice Department has charged 22 alleged members of MS-13 in connection with 7 murders, including one in which a rival gang member was literally dismembered with a machete. Just julienned him right there on the sidewalk, apparently. So the indictment, which was unsealed on Monday, focused on members of a Los Angeles area subset of MS-13 known as the Fulton Clique. And prosecutors called the San Fernando Valley-based gang a particularly violent subset of MS-13 that has recently seen an influx of young immigrants from Central America. All right, we're going to take a phone call now from HB, calling from FEMA Region 4. Aloha, what's on your mind?
Aloha, Mr. Rivero. I called about truckers, but I want to say something and try to get these guys that are on our side that have got deep pockets to chip in. I just don't understand how come we don't have some good guys on our side that got a lot of money that'll chip in. You know, I'm a monthly contributor. I may up it a little bit, but anyway, that gets that off my chest. But you mentioned something about all these truck drivers losing their jobs.
Yes.
I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I travel I-75 and I-40, twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And there's about half as many, the total number of vehicles on the road, half of them are semis. And I mean to tell you, if there's a shortage of stuff being shipped around, it doesn't come through here because there's trucks, and more trucks. I don't get it.
Well, this is overall national level, but we also know that sales of these trucks are also in decline right now.
Yeah, they had a big boom last year selling a lot of trucks, and I see a lot of new trucks on the road. But I'm telling you, through here anyway, it's just truck central day and night.
Well, good that you're in an area with a healthy economy.
Yeah, it is. And Raleigh, you mentioned Raleigh a while ago. My home office is in Raleigh, and it's a bustling little town now.
Well, I'm going to thank you for the phone call. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking about immigration and its ramifications. And so now, out in Los Angeles, they're not only dealing with medieval diseases, they're dealing with medieval murders. And it's a terrible thing to happen. And the reason it happened is they opened up the borders. The Democrats said, sure, we'll let them come on in and chop up people and, rape and pillage and murder, as long as they're voting for the Democratic Party here. Okay, article. This appeared in Chimp Planet, but actually these quotes are all from the Los Angeles Times, and it's basically why California has become the largest insane asylum in the world. Okay, 40% of all workers in Los Angeles County are working for cash and not paying taxes. This is because they're predominantly illegal immigrants working without a green card. 95% of warrants for murder in Los Angeles are for illegal immigrants. 75% of people on the most wanted list in Los Angeles are illegal immigrants. Over 2/3 of all births in Los Angeles County are to illegal immigrant Mexicans on Medi-Cal, whose births are totally paid for by taxpayers. Nearly 35% of all inmates in California detention centers are Mexican nationals who are here illegally. Over 300,000 illegal aliens in Los Angeles County are living in garages. The FBI reports half of all gang members in Los Angeles are most likely illegal aliens from south of the border. Nearly 60% of all occupants of HUD properties are illegal. 21 radio stations in Los Angeles are Spanish-speaking. In Los Angeles County, 5.1 million people speak English, 3.9 million speak Spanish. So the demographics have changed because of the open borders. And it's really deteriorated the city. Trash in the streets, needles in the streets. What a shame. What a shame. When Claire and I finally made the decision that we were going to move off of Hawaii, and we were talking about possible places to land, and I think we spent all of 2 seconds talking about California, because we didn't want to go back to Los Angeles and we didn't want to go back to San Francisco because we had such good memories of them. Okay, we have callers waiting on the line, but we're coming up here on a station identification break here. So quick little story to fill in here. This is from Russia Today. Theresa May and Sadiq-san basically are fiddling while crime destroys London. And they're saying, as Theresa May prepares to vacate Downing Street, Britain has never appeared so broken, fragmented, and rudderless. That certainly is true. All right, we're going to take a break here for station identification. Back with some phone calls after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And let's start with Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Talking about my hometown here. Can I add a couple things here about what's going on in Los Angeles?
Sure.
Recently we had a teachers' strike. It happened back in January, right after Christmas, and it cost a lot of the funding is based on attendance.
Yes.
And at any rate, the underlying number I want to tell you is that, and I work still part-time for LA Unified. I do work for LA Unified. Over a third of the enrollment of all of LA Unified schools are the children of illegals. It's they cost more money because they are called Title I students, and they get free breakfasts and help in the lunches and milk and all that kind of stuff. They also require bilingual teachers. That's more expensive. They're much more expensive than a normal student, and some of them are illiterate, of course, even in Spanish, let alone English. And so one of the things the teachers were, among other things, the biggest gripe the teachers had, other than pay, was the ever-expanding size of kids in the classroom. And with over a third of the kids really not paying a whole lot of taxes, but costing a hell of a lot more, it's a big deal. So you can take, if you remove them, of course, you would take a 40-person class down below 30. And at any rate, the reason I told the teachers when they went on strike that they were going to get this would be the last time they would get anything, that they would get any kind of be able to get a financial settlement, because the reason that they're complaining, of course, is the illegal enrollment here, and they're complaining about that, a shrinking tax base with a enlarging a population of students that need to be educated more expensively. At any rate, and that so they said, okay, the administration, LA Unified administration, says, okay, we will restrict the size of the classes down a little lower than what we have, and of course add more teachers and all. It costs much more money, and the strike itself costs somewhere around $80 million, and just people sitting out. There's nowhere else. I said, listen, there's nowhere else for you to go after this. These people are not going to stop coming because it's a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state, and they're not going to stop. These classes will rapidly grow to what they were and beyond before, and then you're going to have to go. And by the way, we floated a bond to help pay for this in June. It failed. And so now, because the bond failed and the school system is in arrears in a big way, they have to go to the Trump educational department, hat in hand, and say, because there's nowhere else to go, we need more money. What can you give us? And of course, Trump's going to say, well, if you had been following the immigration laws and not educating, you created your own problems. And am I going to take money away from Iowa or Ohio or Indiana, if people who are complying with these regulations and immigration laws, and we're going to take money from them in order to give them to you with your sanctuary cities and welcome illegal aliens and have everybody else pay for that as well. Well, that also, they also estimate, Mike, that between like Santa Barbara and Riverside and basically the greater LA area, there's about 6 million illegals. It's an estimate that I've heard that I frankly don't have a hard time believing at all. And so we have horrible traffic. I love the guys in Tennessee and all that who don't have that much traffic or whatever, but we have a lot of it here. But if you take about 1 million cars off the freeways here, especially the ones that are always breaking down, causing the traffic jams, that would move things along quite a lot. The infrastructure wouldn't be nearly as strained. If you would, we're in a major drought and a water shortage. If you take millions of people off the water or off the power grid that we have to also import, then we wouldn't be in arrears there either. However, it's a Democratic city, it's a Democratic county, it's a Democratic state, and all of our representatives, all our senators, my congresswoman also they're all Democrats. They all want this because, and how would you roll this back if you were a Democrat? How would you then fight against it? It's just politically impossible. They've locked themselves into this. And apparently Trump doesn't have the courage to sit down and say, look, you're not obeying federal law here. And, we're placing you under arrest, whatever. So they do it with school systems, by the way. Compton's school system has been taken over by the Fed or the states before because, they were so horribly, and corruptly administered. Why not arrest these mayors who are doing this and get things right that way? But Trump doesn't have the balls to do it.
No, Trump is all hat and no cattle. In fact, I have not heard any numbers about last weekend's ICE sweep where they were going to arrest 1 million illegal immigrants and schedule them for deportation. I haven't heard what the real number turned out to be. I heard like 20 down in San Diego. That was it.
Well, the mayors, and I don't know if it's been public, I'd be willing to bet that the governor and the attorney general of California are actively working against that. Now, I know the mayors are working against it, but I'll be willing to bet they're doing it at the state level too, and not cooperating with ICE or anybody else, and not turning over names, or else just releasing people as soon as they're brought in. So I have no confidence at all. And these guys can't. It's now to the point where California can't possibly roll it back. Think of the turmoil just in LA County and Riverside County, Greater LA. If that were to be the case, there'd be no politician that could survive it, and there'd be an insurrection. It would be bloody. So,
well,
that's my take on it. Anyways, Mike, what do you think? I know you've lived here a long time.
Yeah, well, I didn't work in the school system, but of course, it's been something like 20 years since I lived in Los Angeles. But every once in a while, I sort of go back through Google Earth, the Street View feature, and I'll go back to the places that Claire and I did live and hang out at, and I can just see the deterioration. Same thing with San Francisco. And we've all read the stories about how things are just really falling apart between the massive homelessness and the illegal immigrants. And by the way, there's another aspect to this. If we weren't bringing in all these illegal immigrants to be a strain on our economy and our social systems, we would have the means to lift up these homeless people, get them off the streets, get them back to work. The Democrats have really just, they're dumb. I'm sorry, they're dumb. They've really messed things up.
And Mike, even though it's been, a couple of years since you've been here, even 20 years ago, the trends were absolutely clear.
Yes.
You could see it 20 years ago. And if anything, not if anything, it's just nothing but accelerated. The descent, the declining curve has gotten steeper, and it's just gotten much worse, much faster, and it's accelerating even from here. So,
well, that's a shame because it was a beautiful city, and I know parts of it still are beautiful. But we're seeing all that inner city rot start to settle in, both there in San Francisco, and it's poor management. We're starting to see it here in Honolulu. We've got portions of the city now that you shouldn't go into at night because of the high crime and the drugs, and it's a shame to see it happen. And that's one of the reasons why Claire and I have decided to settle in a rural area in Indiana. And I'm aiming for Santa Claus. I don't know that we're going to find anything in Santa Claus. But it's nice.
We just bought a house. My wife and I bought a house about a year ago, moved from LA proper into the valley, and it's a nice house. It's a nice house. It's an expensive, nice house. And about 3 weeks after we moved in, I said to my wife, I heard really faintly, speaking of rural, this is a house that, we spent a lot of money on. You could hear chickens crowing in the background.
Yeah.
That's how close. It's an affluent, and it's just like, oh my God, did you hear that, honey? Did you hear? Somebody's got probably fighting cocks or something.
Yeah.
Just a couple blocks away, in the middle of the valley. So.
Well, we have a lot of chickens around where we live here, but they're used for food. Fighting roosters is illegal in this state, and they do enforce it very seriously.
Well, Mike, I got to roll, but thanks for giving me the time here.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Anthony in Tucson. Anthony, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
I wanted a quote, a comment that was made by a novelist. His name was okay. I'm gonna have it right here.
Well, Anthony, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you...
I've got it now.
Okay.
His name was Theodore Dorchovensky. Wrote in his diary, "If the people do not come to their senses, they will very soon be completely in the power of the Jew, and no public organization will be able to help them anymore. They will be entirely beggars and will have sold themselves into slavery, and the Jews and the users will contest for their wealth. The Jews will drink the blood of the people and live upon the decay of the oppression of the people. May the Gentile 90% of the United States remember these words." Then I have here in front of me, I've been doing my research since 19 47. The partial list of the Antichrist subversive organizations in the United States. Richard Pearl is one of them. Then they had Paul Wolfowitz, Douglas Felt, Edward Ludwig, Henry Kissinger, Dov Zak. I have to excuse me, I got macular degeneration. I don't see words too clearly.
Okay.
Kenneth Adamsman, one of the many Pentagon advisors who sits on the Pentagon Defense League, which these people were responsible for removing our War Department because we are only allowed to defend the interest of Israel or the Federal Reserve Bank system. And then we have Louis Libby, Robert Satoff, Elliot Abrams, the pillar infiltrated Jewish Christian organizations called the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews by Director Rabbi Yitzhak Eckstein, the Center for Catholic Jewish Studies, the Center for Christian Jewish Understandings, the Economical Institute for Jewish
Okay,
Christians.
well, Anthony, I think you've made your point. And
These are all subversive organizations that were planned to destroy this country, like that Theodore said in 1881, and right after, before the Civil War, and then they overthrew Russia, and then they used the United States to take over the world, and the stupid people in the United States think that they're fighting for American freedom when they went into Iraq and Korea and Vietnam, and it was only to further establish and put the one world government in place, who they intend to run the world out of Jerusalem, and it's all headed by the Rothschild thing with Volcker, Greenspan, Yeltsin, Paul Warburg.
Okay, well, Anthony, we're going to have to let you go here. The phone lines are loading up. Thank you very much for your information, and we'll certainly keep a warning eye out. And we're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, good day to you, Michael. That last caller, okay. Yeah, we all pretty much, a lot of people know about the wise men of Zion, and people know about the fact of the dark angels in Hollywood. That's what he needs to look into. But Michael, I didn't call you about that. I called you about the caller before that in California, but I really called you about what happened yesterday with that guy, Art. I want to shout out to Art. He made a great call to you about people, Americans will work for these jobs. And I'm going to get to Dustin in a minute. He's like, he loves Trump, bashing Trump. And let me say this to you, Michael. What's going on now, as we all know, I live in Miami, Florida, South Florida area. And I can tell you what happens, the disaster they've caused in this area. But what I really want to talk about is Art's 100% right what he was saying. You know, we hear about immigration. You know, Ignacio Cortez keeps talking about the Green New Deal and all these Democrats. Well, the guy that called before, called from California, he's right. What about all these emissions? What about all these cars? They want to take them away. What do you have? Millions of people, every one of these illegals that go pick cotton or whatever, corn or whatever they do, Michael, they all want jobs. They want to make better their life. So you know what? They all want cars. They want all houses. They want the best luxuries they can get. They're not going to stay in the field. They don't want their kids to be in the field picking strawberries or whatever. They want their kids to excel, so that it's more competition for the Americans that are here. So you're creating a massive competition for the Americans already here. For these people who are going to, we can give them all this. You know, they want Section 8 housing, they want food stamps, welfare. But Michael, and then, you know, we hear about this immigration invasion. As I told you about One American News, always reports it every hour on the hour. How many of your listeners are actually punching that news network up to One American News and seeing the actual results of how many illegals are here, how much money it's costing American taxpayers, and the disaster it's going to cause? They talk environmentally, Michael. The environment is being wiped out because of this illegal invasion. We need to take the money we have and send them back to their home country of origin and fix their own country, put factories, whatever. We're thousands of miles away in China. It has 1 billion people. Well, let's go fix Central America or Latin America, whatever we got to do. But these people go to Argentina, then go to Colombia. Beautiful cities down there. So that's what and getting the back to Dustin, Michael, he's bashing Trump every time he calls your show. Trump has at least exposed a lot of this nonsense. Yeah, Trump's a little whacked out. But you know what? In the end, this would have never been... You think this would have ever been exposed with Hillary? Michael? Hello?
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of people who were making...
This would have never been exposed, sir.
It wouldn't be exposed by Hillary, but it was being exposed by independent media. Anyway, listen, we got to let you go and take a break.
Michael, one more thing. That's
all right,
very important.
I'll bring you back. Remember? All right, stay on hold. Stay on hold. I'll bring you back after the commercial break. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, you said you had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, Tom, Michael, this is for Dustin to understand something. Michael, I know you're familiar with this, and maybe I can jar your memory banks, but do you remember back in the election with Mitt Romney, when Mitt Romney went into a thing and he said he only could get like 48% of the vote, I believe it was, and Jimmy Carter's grandson or I don't know if it was Jimmy Carter's grandson or granddaughter was there filming the whole thing, and Romney's basically coming out in the media went ballistic. Oh, look at Romney, he's being a racist. Do you remember that, Michael?
Not really.
Okay, well, Mitt Romney came out and said a statement in a town hall, and they had secret cameras in there. I think it was Jimmy Carter's grandson. You can Google it and check it. But here's what I'm going to bring out to this fact, Michael. You know, and I know you know this, Michael. This is the fact. Now, you know about the dark state, the deep angels, the dark angels, whatever you want to call them, the cabal, whatever. You remember they had a picture of Jeremiah Wright, Elijah Cummings, Barry Soetoro Hussein Obama, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright, and Louis Farrakhan. And there was a Jewish man who took these pictures. There were 3 photos. And he offered Mitt Romney's campaign these pictures right before the election, which I think wasn't, well, he got upset what they did to Romney at this convention when they were sneaking about the 48 percenters. I can't remember the whole story, but I do remember the story, Michael. This is very important. Dustin, listen to this. Donald Trump wouldn't have been the president. Mitt Romney would have won in 2012 if those 3 pictures would have been bought for $1 million from Mormon Mitt Romney, who's the Mormon, who didn't want to pay $1 million to win the election. Now, you tell me what the conspiracy is, Michael. Let's go back to what I'm saying. 3 pictures that could have won the election for Mitt Romney, that he wasn't acceptable to pay $1 million because I guess it was too much money for him. But here's a Jewish guy who had these pictures. You can Google all this information. And you tell me, and then Dustin bashing Trump. It was a good thing we did get Trump, because if Mitt Romney had been president, we'd be flooded with 50 million illegals. According to OAN, it's only 26 million, probably be double that. So who's going to absorb all this Ignacio Cortez and this Omar? What are you going to do with all these people in a Green New Deal? All these people want cars and new homes and new everything, new food. Who's going to pay for this food?
Tom, calm down. You're drinking way too much coffee.
Michael, sorry.
We actually have Dustin.
If I told you where I was at, you wouldn't believe where I'm at, Michael.
Okay,
I'm in a very precarious situation, but
hey, Tom,
I'm trying to get better.
Tom, okay.
Yes, sir.
We actually have Dustin from New Jersey on the line. We're going to put you 2 together because I'm sure he's got. He wants to respond to some of the things you're saying about him.
Sure, go right ahead. I'd love to talk to him. I'd love to debate him. I love it. I think it would be fantastic to debate him. Go ahead.
Hey, Tom, how you doing, man?
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Hot, man. This weather's crazy in New Jersey.
Yep.
Well, I'm in Florida. I think we've got a little better weather than you guys. Well, my nephews live up in Chicago, so Chicago's a heat wave like Arizona. So all the people that try to escape from Chicago to Arizona, now they're getting hit with like Arizona weather. So I understand what you're saying. I got family all over this country, brother. I got family.
It's 98 degrees over here today.
Yeah, well, Jersey, that's the most taxed state in the union. If you like living there, I don't know how you can stay there paying those high taxes and the insanity over in New Jersey with all the liberal Democrats you got. I mean, that state's so liberal. I mean, look at New York. I think those states are totally gone for the next 50 years. And if you want me to tell you another thing, Dustin, let's look at Detroit, Michigan. Have you seen what's going on in Detroit?
Dude, I know what's going on all over the world, dude.
In 1954, do you think we'd have won World War II without Detroit, sir?
Probably not, because that's where the industry was.
You be speaking German, my friend.
All right, Tom, I'm going to ask you something. If Mitt Romney got in and Trump didn't, so you had 25 million illegals and it goes to 50, what's the difference between 25 million and 50? They're still not being deported.
Well, Dustin, we understand that because, listen, I live in a place right now, Dustin, we don't have one white Anglo male on the Miami-Dade County Commission. You understand that? This was called a place, Miami, Florida, in 1955, was called the Magic City. I don't know if you ever heard of the Jackie Gleason show, The Honeymooners. Have you ever heard of those shows, sir? We had some of the greatest entertainment in South Florida. Okay, so if you watch The Honeymooners, Jackie Gleason was a big star here in Miami, on Miami Beach. Let me explain to you, Dustin, about Miami Beach. Miami Beach was 90% Jewish. The whole South Beach all the way up to North Miami Beach. Golden Glades. You know how many Jews are living in South Beach right now currently? Not even 5%. They all went to Boca. You know anything about Boca Raton? Sir?
No.
Okay, Boca Raton is where their big haven is in the state of Florida. They have a lot in Naples, but that's where a lot of Jews live. Jewish people were, hey, they're a beautiful culture. They're all right, as long as they have the Lord in them. I'm a Jew for Jesus, brother. But now, I will tell you this.
But Tom,
Dustin,
when I'm asking you said I bashed. Well, hold on a second. You said I bashed Trump. I bashed Trump because dude, I'm 48 years old. Okay. The first time I voted was for Obama because I believed in hope and change.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry. We need to bring this to an end. We got to take a commercial break. We're going to drop Tom. Thank you for the phone.
Dustin. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for the phone call.
Too,
we're going to keep Dustin. We're going to bring Dustin back after the commercial break. So we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. And Dustin, what's on your mind today?
Like I was telling Tom, though, I'm 48. I voted for Obama because I believed in his hope and change. And I'm a registered Democrat, but that doesn't mean crap because I don't like the Democrats. But that's what I went with at the time for Obama. But I voted for Trump. But I don't see no results. Like nothing.
Me neither.
I don't understand how I can keep telling people that, no border wall. Write this down. No, Mike, no vaccine, no border wall, no infrastructure. No, the wars don't stop. He's sending troops to Saudi Arabia. Why? How come they're not going to the border? Where's all the roundups? Like you said, a million.
I'm looking at a story. I'm looking at a story from CBS News right now where they're saying it didn't happen. That there were few reports of unusual activity by immigration agents over the weekend, over Sunday. Mary Bauer, the legal director of the Southern Poverty Law Center, is saying there were no confirmed operations in large southern cities such as Atlanta. So it didn't happen.
It's a scam. Mike, we've been played. How can we... My God, people, the election's coming up in 2020. It doesn't matter who the hell gets in. Okay? Hillary, Trump, Mitt Romney, what's changed? We're holding out hope for a hero. The dude ain't coming.
Nope.
And Pete from New Jersey, Pete from Los Angeles, or Pete from California is right. Like, decades ago, we saw the trends in the West, like in Europe and over here, and it's not good. And Tom from Florida is right. But demographics change throughout history, but the problem is the culture's changed, and I just don't see anybody trying to keep it from changing, because remember the movie Gangs of New York? You had the Irish, the Italians.
Oh yes, I remember that one.
Yeah, but that's gone. Those areas are not the same as they used to be, and it's just a demographic change, and but the whole thing about demographic, it doesn't, if it changes It doesn't matter as long as they retain the culture of your society, but that's not happening here or in Europe anymore.
No, it isn't, because
China's culture.
when you're talking about demographic changes like in New York City back then, or around the time of the Civil War, it was happening gradually. There was intermarriage. There were people who were moving in and moving out. Today's, it's a forcible displacement. And we're dealing with an incoming population of illegal immigrants who are very defensive about being illegal immigrants, and they don't want to integrate. You know, they
And nobody's making them integrate, Mike.
well,
like the Republicans or the Democrats don't want
I
them
remember,
to.
again, 20 years ago when I was still in Los Angeles, you know, they were already arguing and saying we've got to have bilingual signs and bilingual textbooks. And, you know, if you want to talk to us, you learn Spanish. And it was this, I think it was this group called Aztlan that was arguing for California to be made part of Mexico again. And they were out there, they were very confrontational, in your face, and saying that, yeah, if you want to talk to Mexicans, you've got to learn Spanish. We're under no obligation to learn your English.
And Mike, how stupid those people are. What's like Hillary?
I keep hearing a touch tone. Are you like holding the phone too tight against your face?
No, not at all.
Are you leaning? Oh, okay, but I
moved into another room.
Okay, because I'm hearing touch tones come over the line quite a bit. Anyway, we need to wrap this up. We've got other callers waiting on the line.
Hey. All right, Mike, have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Keith Rogers. Aloha, Keith. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, one thing, Mike, I'm a firm believer that it's kind of like the court case where a man is being charged for killing his mother, his father, his two siblings, and then he asks for leniency from the judge because he's an orphan.
Yeah.
The immigration problem that we have has stemmed from my early days back in the 80s with Oliver North and the Contras. And this has continued up into our day. When you look at U.S. foreign policy to where it hails it as a victory, like down in Nicaragua, where the below that of Haiti, and what we have today is just like the standard operating procedure: destroy a country, leave stay-behind forces such as Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, ISIS, leaving that target country in a civil war so that no social reforms can be done, then sell arms to the targeted country through IMF loans with interest while strip mining all their commerce. And this is what they've been doing down through the entire Latin America, Asia.
Yep.
We all know about the CIA drug planes and stuff, but this is a product of the United States. And so for anyone in America to cry victim is ridiculous because it's their government, the rogue government. So when anyone wants to go over to YouTube and watch all that Rex 84 with Oliver North on trial, the shadow government, what they were doing, this is all a byproduct of the United States, just in as much as the Middle East and all those wars. In 2016, they had that thing from the UN where it declared 60 million immigrants from 3 countries, but they omitted that the United States was bombing them, or their proxy forces too, you know.
Yes.
The same in Syria. When you hear about all these Syrian rebels, you know, and then you hear about the Syrian refugees, you know, anyone who watches a video like The War You Didn't See by John Pilger, the rows and rows of graves where a man was holding a chain or a key with his 2 children. This is a product of the United States illegal wars. And so the only way to fix anything, immigration-wise or anything else, is to stop these illegal wars. In as much as when you watch the videos of Barbara Lerner Specter, where she proudly says that immigration, she's going to transform Europe, or the other one about the Zionist Jews that admit that immigration's number 1 on their agenda. This country's devotion to the Israelis, the Zionists, and this doesn't affect all Jews because I know a lot of Jews that don't back this stuff up, you know. But this is all a byproduct of U.S. foreign policy. So if you want to change something like that, elect all these, well, like John was screaming yesterday on his show there, it's time to change the government, It would cost the Israelis a hell of a lot of money if you just swapped out the entire U.S. government, I can tell you that.
Yes, it certainly would. And again, I think it's all headed for a huge collapse. And I just can't see that the United States is going to be able to survive much longer going the way that it's going. And whether it's the economy or the homelessness or the illegal immigration or corruption by Israel, we're reaching a breaking point.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, like, if like Jeremy Wright, Pastor Wright was mentioned there, go watch the full 9-minute video of that thing about why America's chickens will come home to roost. This is the massive destruction of those countries, the killing of priests, nuns, all this stuff. It's designed to leave a country in total despair while the United States is out there strip mining it for its assets for corporate America.
Yep.
And Americans will refuse to do that because of this constant, if you're not with us, you're against us stuff. The evil Muslims, or now it's Mexicans or something like that, Or next it's Russians. The NSC 68, which is a doctrine from the Truman era, which was to keep the evil enemy, Russia. That's why the goal right now is to push all these foreign states into the hands of Russia so they have their eternal Satan to keep their stupid budget for this Pentagon. While we have Americans crapping in the streets, the heartland is completely flooded. Most crops haven't been planted. The tent cities can be seen from space now.
Yes.
This is all a product of the United States, to where no one cares as long as guys can sit there and enlarge their penis or cut it off or something. I mean, this is all distractions.
Well, that was... Yes. No, we know this government has become totally corrupt. It's operating as a criminal enterprise. It's been playing this game of regime change and pillaging other countries going back at least to the end of World War II. And there's a long history out there where, the United States government is very predatory, and they've wrecked a lot of countries. They've ruined a lot of countries, and the process is accelerating. Anyway, Keith, we're going to let you go. And
one more thing before I go.
All right, one more thing.
We have military recruiters that are committing suicide. We have active duty Marines, special ops committing suicide. The 8,000 veterans a year that commit suicide. The 307,000 veterans that have died by the IG report from the VA. They don't care. It's all corporate profit. That's all they care about. Anyway, have a good day, okay?
All right, thanks an awful lot. And yes, you're right. It's all corporate profits. I remember back when they were just starting the Iraq War, and Donald Rumsfeld was still Secretary of Defense, and he came out complaining that too many soldiers were surviving their battlefield injuries, and they hadn't planned for it. Okay, let's switch over to Mike in Brazil. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
This is Jim from Illinois.
Okay, I guess we lost Mike in Brazil, so Jim in Illinois, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael, I have a question. More than likely, Jeffrey Epstein trial won't start until next year, which will be an election year. What would happen if the federal prosecutor subpoenas Trump to come and be questioned regarding his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm sure the Democrats would have a field day with it.
Well, considering it's the New York prosecutor, don't you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, I think there's probably a good possibility that they will stage it to try and use the trial to go after Trump. They're trying to protect Bill Clinton as hard as they can. They're basically trying to find some way to, but I've never seen such infighting.
I would agree. Considering Epstein's going to be in jail until the trial comes, do you think he might be telling his lawyers or other people, get the list of all the people that were involved in my little island down in the Caribbean? I mean, the guy knows too much.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm still questioning, you know, everything is timing. Why was he arrested at this particular time?
Interesting question. I mean, it looked to me like the timing was a little wanky, but on the other hand, you know, I guess I don't know what's going on behind, you know, the doors at the prosecutor's office.
Right. Okay. Well, Michael, I'm going to let you go. You take care.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. And did we lose Mike in Brazil? Or is he there? Mike, are you there? And the phone lines are open again. Somebody just sent me an email about Indiana. To my knowledge, Santa Claus is mostly a tourist attraction with under 3,000 population. You may want to look at Jasper if Santa Claus doesn't have what you want. Snow shouldn't be a concern there. Best of luck on your move. And information on where they leave. We've been to Santa Claus. And yeah, it's a tourist attraction. But we actually found one rental within the city limits. We're also looking over in Newburgh. We want to stay out of the inundation zones. The rents are just amazing there compared to Hawaii. It just really is. All right, getting on back to the news. American Airlines has now extended the Boeing 737 MAX cancellations or groundings for the 4th time. So whatever happened to this aircraft, it's taking a long time to fix. All right, there's this individual, it's a Christian doctor, and he refused to call a 6-foot bearded man madam, for which he got sued. And he got branded a bigot by Piers Morgan on live breakfast TV. So he's going to stand up. He says, if being called a bigot means I stand up for my beliefs, I take it as a badge of honor. So this one's heading to court. I think the whole idea is just extraordinarily silly. Okay, we got a caller on the line. Mike in Brazil. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Are you reading me all right?
I can hear you now. Yes, we're going to have to take you through the commercial break, but we can hear you.
Okay. I've been cut off twice already. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, what I wanted to say is that I side with Dustin from New Jersey. He's making good points, and so does Tom from Florida. The problem is that Tom from Florida makes one tiny little mistake there. Okay, so he tends to paint everybody with a white brush. I need to remind Tom that, very respectfully so, that the best professors, the best doctors, the best engineers, and the best scientists, and the best physicists and mathematicians are all Jews. May I remind him that? Okay, so...
Well, now who's painting with a wide brush? Because, for example, the world's greatest number theorist is an Indian, Srinivasa Ramanujan.
Right, but if you look down the history of science, you'll realize that most of the inventions were made by Jews. Okay, so...
okay, we have to... I have to put you on hold. I have to put you on hold.
Okay.
We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Mike in Brazil. And Mike, you were criticizing Dustin for painting with a wide brush. And then you started painting with a wide brush.
The thing is, I'm very bothered by the fact that a lot of people keep pointing fingers at the Jews, saying that the Jews did this and the Jews did that. But they fail to recognize their achievements in academia, in science. The best doctors, the best medical doctors, Mike, are all Jews. orthopedists.
There you go with the wide brush here. Okay.
No, I'm not really, because
let's look at Henry Ford, who invented the assembly line and made affordable cars. He wasn't Jewish. How about Thomas Jefferson, who invented the motion picture camera, the phonograph, and a whole bunch of other stuff? He wasn't Jewish. He was Protestant. So we need to be very careful saying that, you know, the Jews, blah, blah. They're very preeminent, okay, in the sciences, but they're not exclusively, you know, at the very top. Like I said before, the world's greatest number theorist is Srinivasa Ramanujan, who's in India.
I never said that. I never said that it's only the Jews who are intellectually gifted. I never said that. No. What I'm saying is that most of the discoveries in science were made by Jews. And this has to be recognized. They have to get the credit for it. Listen, I'm not Jewish, okay? So what I'm saying is you have to give credit where the credit is due. And aside from this, I want to talk about Dustin from New Jersey. He makes good points. And so does Tom. Both of them. They make good points. And I love listening to both of them. Tom seems to be drinking a lot of coffee, okay?
Yes.
So maybe he ought to cut down on it. Maybe he ought to cut down on it. But I tell you something, both of them make good arguments. It's hard to argue with them, really. I mean, I wouldn't like to get in an argument with Dustin from New Jersey or from Tom from Florida. So, but I tell you, they're both very intelligent people, and I enjoy listening to them. Every time when Dustin from New Jersey calls, I perk my ears. You know, I leave whatever I'm doing aside, and I'm listening to his call. This is how passionate I am, you know, about this, because he knows what he's talking about, and so do you. And what I'm trying to say, Mike, is I'm watching from afar, very far, probably 6,000 miles away. I'm looking at this country going to the dogs, and nobody seems to be doing any damn thing about it. Okay, we have people who I don't know how they even got their names on the ballots, like Ilhan Omar and AOC and their ilk. I don't know how they got their name on the ballot, to be honest with you, because these people are not qualified to run anything, not even to run a small enterprise.
They're poseurs. They're good at getting their pictures on magazine covers, and that's about it. All right, well,
yeah,
Mike,
I've seen a lot of that.
Mike, got to let you go here. Got to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 3 after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to go right to the phones. Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. I have some thoughts. The other night I was watching the movie Chinatown. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
There's a very powerful scene where the pedophile John Huston was telling Jack Nicholson, he says, that most people never have to face the fact that at the right time and the right place, they're capable of anything. And that, sadly, that made me think of President Trump. You know, a lot of us are stuck in what they call the right-left paradigm.
Yes.
They say, oh, Clinton was with Epstein. Clinton was with Epstein. You know, I see that on the alt-right. It's all Clinton. But, I mean, it's a horrific thought to think. But Trump was also friends with Epstein. And I hate to say it, but we have to recognize the possibility that President Trump was, well, having sex with underage women.
That's a bit of a leap here. I mean, in the case of Bill Clinton, it's documented that he went down to that island in the Caribbean on flights where there were underage girls. And, he has a history of sexual abuse and rape. Trump doesn't have that. Trump was friends with Epstein back when they were both involved in, New York financial matters, and apparently they would hang out together at Mar-a-Lago in Florida, but that's apparently as far as Trump went. Now, is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? Probably not. And I think if there was anything out there along that line, it would have been brought up and exposed by now. So we need to be very careful. The fact that somebody is friends with Epstein does not automatically mean that they were molesting small children.
Yes, and you need evidence.
Yes.
Certainly. But I think it was Jim in Illinois was saying, why is this Epstein thing being brought up now? Why now? And, I'm sorry, I just thought of the possibility that if Trump were involved with Epstein, that this is the blackmail to try to get him to go along with what Israel wants. What do you think?
I think it's an interesting theory, but as we said before, we're absent evidence. We don't have Trump, at the Epstein island. So there's a big hole in the story. I mean, when you're at that level of our society where you're a billionaire, you tend to know everybody. And Epstein was famous for collecting people. He wanted to collect people. He wanted to know everybody who was worth knowing. And so that's probably how he got together with Trump. And yes, that photo that surfaced from Trump and Epstein having a party with some models, it was right after Trump's divorce. So again, the models were of age.
Yes. Well, again, it's a horrific thought, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. And of course, you need evidence.
Yeah.
Let's hope that's not the case. It's a very disturbing thought, but I thought it, and I think
Well, Jim was making hints along that same line, and there we go. Anyway, Jim, we're going to let you go, and
okay. Thanks for taking my call, Mike.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, we got to be really careful. The fact that somebody actually knew Epstein does not automatically mean they were involved in the pedophilia. I'm sure that was a much smaller circle of Epstein's friends. All righty. There we go. Okay, over at Harvard, they've had a study. These 3 psychologists last year looked at the issue of trigger warnings, which are currently used on college campuses to let students and others know if potentially traumatic information is about to hit their eyes and enter their ears. And what they discovered is that these trigger warnings may actually hamper emotional resilience and one's ability to handle trauma. So the psychologists said they found no evidence that trigger warnings were helpful for trauma survivors, for those who self-reported a PTSD diagnosis, or for those who qualified for probable PTSD, even when survivors' trauma matched the passage's content. Here is the important part. The researchers added that they found substantial evidence that trigger warnings counter-therapeutically reinforce survivors' view of their trauma as central to their identity. In other words, these kids are being conditioned to be offended, to be traumatized. I remember the Bloom County, there was this one cartoon strip they did one time where I'm offended. Well, I'm offended by your offense. I take offense to that. Should have kept that one here. All right, over in Virginia, in Appomattox, there's a church, Friendship Baptist Church, and it has a sign that reads, America, love it or leave it. And Pastor E.W. Lucas and his wife shared how he's put up signs since he started Friendship Baptist Church in 1979. And he said, I thought I was going to make some remarks regarding the situation in Washington. It just came to me, America, I love it. If you don't love it, leave it. Now, a lot of people around him are upset. They're upset about the leave it part. And hundreds of people have expressed their support and opposition on social media. And of course, they've tied it in with Donald Trump and send her back and all this other nonsense. Now, I remember when I was a kid, that was actually a very common expression. America, love it or leave it. And people, for the most part, didn't get upset by it. We talked about this a little while ago. Over in San Francisco, there was this high school, Washington High School, George Washington High School. And it's got this series of murals, one of which depicts the first president. And the student board, basically, the school board, voted to paint over the mural because it was traumatizing to people. It traumatizes students. It reminds them of, I guess, beating the British. They're saying it glorifies white slavery. But apparently over 500 academics signed an open letter imploring the board to think twice about its decision, calling it a gross violation of logic, as the cycle of 13 murals actually represents a significant monument of anti-racism. Now, the Russian-American painter Viktor Arnautov created the mural series on the walls of George Washington High School before it opened all the way back in 1936. And at the time, it was the largest WPA-funded single artist mural suite on the Pacific Coast. So the mural itself is historic. And some of the mural's images have come under fire during the civil rights movement over its depictions of slavery and Native Americans. And again, we become a nation of whiners, of triggered, of traumatized, of offended. If we scrub this nation of everything that offends anybody, there will be nothing left. So, let's see. Alrighty. Apparently over at Planned Parenthood, they have fired President Leana Wen just 10 months after hiring her because, according to this story, which is at stationgossip.com, Wen refused to say that men can get pregnant, and she wasn't politically aggressive enough pushing the life-ending procedure. Well, the second one I can understand, but that first one, that's a little out there. Men can get pregnant. Just insane. All righty. We're looking at that recent court decision where the judge further reduced the punitive damages against Monsanto for having knowingly sold a carcinogenic product. And now it's come on out that the judge Chhabria has a prior connection to Monsanto. Apparently, one of the law firms where he worked, Covington and Burling LLP, is a well-known defender of a variety of corporate interests, including Monsanto. Covington was reportedly instrumental in helping Monsanto defend itself against dairy industry concerns over the company's synthetic bovine growth hormone supplement known as RBGH, or the brand name Posilac. Remember, we've talked about that synthetic bovine growth hormone before here. But apparently, Chhabria worked at the firm between 2002 and 2004, a time period when Monsanto's legal battle over Posilac was in high gear. The firm was reportedly involved in the issue in part by sending letters to virtually all U.S. dairy processors warning they faced potential legal consequences if they labeled their consumer products as RBGH free. Now, if you'll remember the story where these two Fox News reporters were told to write a puff piece on this stuff about how great it was, and they discovered that people consuming the products from the treated cows were developing serious health issues. So this was apparently a major problem, and would explain why Monsanto was sending letters to the farmers saying, don't label your products Posilac free. So these two reporters turned in their report to Fox. Fox said, no, you're supposed to do a puff piece. And the reporter said, this is serious stuff. This stuff is hurting people. So Fox News ordered them to change the story. The reporters refused and were fired. And the reporters sued Fox News for wrongful termination. And they lost on appeal when the court ruled that because there is no law requiring the corporate media to tell the public the truth, that corporate media management can order their prostitutes and correspondents to lie and then fire them when they refuse to do so. So that's where that went. Okay, we're going to take a phone call now from Lenny in California. Aloha, Lenny. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I just want to say to Dustin from New Jersey, I agree with him that, and you, of course, that we have the appearance of something being done, but nothing is being done. Back to Obama, back to Bush, back to Clinton. They're all working for the same Zionist master. All right? And we're only being given the illusion of a choice. I thought that Mr. Rogers brought in a good conversation and all the points that he made. And to Mr. Mike in Brazil, there have been inventors and people who've contributed to humanity from all points of humanity.
Yes.
Okay, and nobody is better than the other. Now, as far as Donald Trump, I find no fault in what he said when he referred to the women of the apocalypse, the four women of the apocalypse. Okay, there was nothing racist about what he said, in my humble opinion. Okay, if you don't like what you're doing and you can't say anything good about it, then leave it alone. Okay, maybe it's time for you to go do something else. But if but the thing is, I don't agree with him that we shouldn't criticize Israel. I think most of the problems that we're having in this country is because of our devotion, unmitigated, blind devotion to Israel. That's why we're having a problem with most of the world.
Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
And down in Florida, has this law gone into effect, or is it still being put into effect, or being considered that it's becoming against the law to even criticize Israel?
I think that law, or one just like it, is now active in something like 22 states.
Yeah. So I think we do have a problem when you don't even have freedom of speech. You know, that's a human right. When you don't have the right to be a human being, you got problems, man. All right? And like I said before, I find no fault in what Donald Trump said. It wasn't racist, but the media wants to spin it that way because they're betting on a race war. I see I was looking at the Drudge Report yesterday. The first 3 headlines on the Drudge Report are Congress getting threats. The 4 women of the so-called 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse getting threats. Okay, Chuck Schumer calls for reparations, as if he knows something about it. Maybe he does. I don't know. But the point is that, you know, it's all being spun into a racist tornado.
Yes.
So to have people at each other's throats, can't you see that, people? I agree with Dustin. I just want to let him know I was red pill back when Ralph Nader was running for president. I saw the obvious when he was doing good and the people were listening and were getting behind him. And both the Republicans and the Democrats got together and shut him out. They threatened to have him arrested even if he attended a debate. They wouldn't let him debate because they knew he would win. But when someone bought him a ticket to simply attend the debate, the Republicans and the Democrats got together and threatened to have him arrested. At that moment, I was done. I was done with politics. All right, and I refuse to continue to take part in my own self-destruction. I'm not going to, you know, be a willing participant. But I just have a problem with the fact that we can't even we look at the truth. And I don't call them the women of the apocalypse. I call them the devil's concubines because they are willingly being used as weaponized racial tools to get a lot of crap started. And Mike, you won't believe what I came across the other day. Guess who's considered as being the new oppressive white people among black people?
Who?
The straight black male.
Okay.
This was this was announced by the LGBT community, by a gay man in the LGBT community who said that the straight black male is now considered the new oppressive white people of the black community.
That's really out there. Anyway, Lenny, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. We've got other callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Joseph in Hawaii. Aloha, bra. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, aloha, Mike. Listen, yesterday before you got cut off, I think you were this is sort of changing the subject from what you were just on, but you were talking about the economy and things like that. And I was hoping to get through. But anyway, bringing that back up, one thing I don't know if gets talked about often enough when we talk about wages and things like that is the 401ks with all the individuals in this country who have investments in their 401k, especially those in the baby boomer area, and the impetus that corporations make towards that, satisfying their investors rather than their consumers, in terms of the bottom line. It just seems like what's going on in this world, or at least in our country, is that they are more beholden to, the investors and, and going that direction for their, growth and the economy and so forth than perhaps helping people with jobs. If you look at the stock market, when there's layoffs in a company, the stock goes up. Investors are happy, rather than looking at it from more of a macro standpoint, realizing that a lot of people just got laid off from work, now out of work, so you see this dichotomy going on in our country right now, where the market's doing one thing, the investors, maybe there's a lot of individuals, I have my 401k, everybody, a lot of people do, that are pulled in the direction of, wanting their portfolio to get bigger. But then there's the other side of the coin, which basically means that the average person, in the process may not be doing so well, because in order for those portfolios to be getting bigger and bigger, it's coming at a cost. And I guess,
yes.
When individuals start looking at wanting to, have companies in our country, buy America and things like that, where prices are going to be higher, the corporations, that's going to, you wonder how the rub is going to be on people's portfolios and how that plays out in this whole conversation. So I guess it's, I just want to get your thoughts on that. and you know. And
well, you know,
addressing some of that.
basically, you know, you're absolutely right. When the employment situation goes downhill, the stock market goes up. It's an inverse relation, and it's yes, it is weird. I mean, your 401k is going to be doing a lot better if your neighbor is out of work, and that's unfortunately just the way it is.
Yeah, it boils. You know, granted, the consumers are not able to. You know, when you have laid off people, maybe their buying power is down. So you would think, on a macro scale, that's going to hurt the economy. You know, because they always look at the unemployment rate. But in essence, we have become. You know, I think about companies. You know, I had a background in the airlines, and it seems that their focus. You know, when I think about the three entities of who, if you were to list them in priority, what would they be holding most to? You would think the three things would be either the consumers or the customers, the stockholders, or the I think it was the third one was the customer service or something. I can't remember, but what it came down to is that it's the stockholders.
Definitely, your
it's
top level
investors.
executives. Your top level executives are going to be more concerned with what the majority shareholders are thinking about. They're not going to care about the small fry that only have a share or two, but the ones who are sitting on the board of directors, they pull a lot of power, and somewhere after that, of course, they are going to care about the customer because they want to keep the customer happy enough to come into the store and spend money. And I would say below the customer would be the worker.
Exactly, that was the third person, was the employee. Exactly, and so that's what we have. That's what we live with today. Is this reality in our world or in our country where the corporations have gotten so big to the point where you have a lot of oligopolies going on. You don't have the true competitive nature, and what's led to that, or what's driven a lot of that, are people who they're happy. The people who have their 401ks with this situation. They speak out of one side where they'll say we need competition in our country and all that, but meanwhile their stocks are their portfolios are doing better because the fact that the corporations, we have had the monopolies going on. You have the big getting bigger, and their portfolios are getting bigger along with that. It's a weird dynamic, but it's a reality, and I don't have an answer to it. But it's just something I think that should be always thought about when we have these conversations, of wages and employment and things like that, because that's a big driving force. Anyway, just wanted to get your thoughts. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here, and we're coming up on another commercial break here. We've got two callers waiting on the line, but I'm going to leave them until after we come back here. Interesting little story out of Natural News here. There was a study published in the British Medical Journal which showed that not only do antidepressants not work on depression, they now have been linked to dementia. And apparently the study, which was published in the British Medical Journal, involved more than 40,000 dementia patients and more than 283,000 people who didn't have dementia and were then followed up on. All right, we're going to take a break here. Back with two phone calls after these few words. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Tom in Philadelphia. Are you there?
Hello there, Michael.
Hello, Tom.
How soon will you be in Indiana?
We're going to be there, probably first part of September.
Oh, okay. I might be over that way. I'll give you a call and say hello. Anyway, I'm just curious how many people went through withdrawal yesterday after you went dead mid-sentence on the show. I was scrambling, looking for, like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah, I got a lot of email. I got a lot of email.
Yeah, well, the next time it goes dead, folks out there, could be permanently if people don't do something and start helping more than they are. I mentioned several times that we have a way to help the station and save money at the same time, and I'm listening to all these callers that are in states that that our service is in, and I don't see you on our list. And, you know, the advertisement is right there on the website. You know, help us keep the bills paid, and you won't have a permanent outage. So I'm not going to go any further than that. But if everybody listens to Stat Miller tonight about the 7:30 Eastern time, we're going to be on the air talking about it with John Statmiller, myself, and Kevin. Now, the reason I called was the rally in North Carolina last night. I think Trump missed a great opportunity when he said, when they were doing the chant, what was it? Send her home.
Send her back.
Send her home.
Send her back.
Send her back. Well, yeah, he should have said, send them all back. And what I mean by that is he should have said, send them all back when the election comes up and vote them out of office and send them home, send them back to their house as a non-congresswoman, because that's what they need to do. These people are so selfish and so self-righteous that they think that they can just tear us down and get away with it. And, you know, he should have just jumped right on them. You know, I know everybody's complaining that he, you know, send them back to wherever they came from. But he didn't say that. The crowd did.
Yes.
But he should have taken that opportunity to blast them and say, send them all home, vote them out of office, have a special recall, get them out of there, and get somebody in there that cares about our country instead of tearing it down. So that's my 2 cents, buddy.
All right. Well, Tom, thanks an awful lot for your 2 cents and your opinion. And I think the reason that...
Have a safe trip, buddy.
Yeah, I would definitely will do that here. Okay, we're going to switch over to Ray in Kansas. Aloha, Ray. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
First-time caller.
Okay.
I've been listening to you for about 15 years. I mean, I go back to Vince Foster.
That goes back...
so I know a lot about...
Yeah, that goes back a long, long way.
Oh, yeah.
I've only been doing radio, though, for about 12 years. I've been doing radio for about 12 years, but the website for about quarter of a century.
Well, I know about you, but I've been listening for a long time. And I just want to let you know that the satellite feed was down, too, on 97 West, AM, because I listen to you on satellite. So that also was down.
It's down now?
It wasn't just you. No, it was down yesterday when you went off. I was pretty upset because I had 3 ways to listen, and all 3 ways were kapoots. When you left, I checked the satellite. It was gone. I checked the streams. They were gone. So I think it was also in Round Rock, Texas.
Well, yeah. I mean, as I said at the beginning of the show, the problem was there were some workmen nearby who were digging, and they accidentally cut the fiber optic cable going to the studio. So everything shut down. The audio feeds, the phones, everything went down.
Right. Now, are you saying that happened in Round Rock?
Yes.
Okay, then I got you straight. Now, what I wanted to call you about was the basic fact that the gentleman from Brazil was saying that Jews were the greatest inventors and all the great stuff. Well, you know, I can throw one in there that I think was pretty great, and that was Nikola Tesla.
Yes.
How about that guy? And how about Thomas Edison?
Yep.
There's another one.
Yep.
How about Benjamin Franklin?
Yep.
There's another one. So we got some good people all the way around. I don't like to paint with a broad brush, but we do have good people in all walks of life. And I'm going to tell you, I go back to when you remember when John from Barbados used to call in all the time?
I do indeed.
I really love that guy. I always look forward to his calls. I do. I enjoy Dustin. I enjoy Art Off the Grid. I mean, you know, there's 2 guys from Florida that call in that I really enjoy. And then there's a few I don't enjoy, but I listen anyway. I don't mute. I listen because you learn that way. You know, because everybody's got some good input, no matter who they are. I love Lenny from California.
Yes.
He's great. I really enjoy his input, but Dustin and Lenny and Tom and Art Off the Grid, they're all good people.
And let's not forget Layla up in Canada.
Well, I listened to her. You know, I didn't used to like her, but she said one thing one day. I just happened to tune in, and she said something that really stuck in my brain about divine. She said there had to have been some kind of divine intervention in making the earth, you know, and all that kind of stuff. That kind of made me think a little bit better on her.
Okay.
I really got a kick out of that when she said that, because, you know, I didn't know whether she was a Christian or an atheist or what. But, you know, I don't run people down that don't believe, but I'm a believer. And I know that Claire is a believer, so, hey, my hat's off to Claire.
Okay.
But I don't disrespect you because you don't, you know. But there's one last point I'd like to make. You remember the 4th of July parade that Mr. President Trump put on, our president?
Yes.
He had 2 tanks there. They made a big deal out of that, you know? And it was like he was going to, if you watch MSNBC, you know, Psycho Joe, you know, and his wife Malika, they were making a big deal about these tanks being there, you know? Well, the last time that I remember tanks where people died, that was at Waco, Texas.
Yes.
And as I see it, we had a Democratic president at that time by the name of William Jefferson Clinton.
Yes.
And then you got Vicki Weaver. Remember her?
Yep.
Yep. There's another one. Then you had the. I mean, we've had so many. You know, Oklahoma City, 911. We've had Kent State. A lot of people forget about Kent State.
Yep.
And then we had the towers here down there in Texas.
That was a while ago.
Yeah. I go back, but my birthday's August 29th.
Hey, same as mine.
And you got a birthday coming up, brother. And, you know, I've never called your show before. This is a first. I've been listening, like I say. I've known about you for at least 15 years, probably been listening 12. I've had my satellite dish for at least 30 years. So I pretty well know most of the talk show hosts that are up there on satellite. So I'm an avid listener. I enjoy your show, and I enjoy your callers.
Well, thank you very much for that. And, you know, us
Virgos
have to stick together.
Back to Indiana.
Say again?
I'm looking forward to you coming back to Indiana because my mother was born in Indiana, and she's from Indiana.
Well,
so I pretty well know Rensselaer, Maryville, you know, and you're talking about Logansport. I mean, there's a lot of good little towns around there in Indiana. So hopefully you're going to be in a rural area.
Oh, I definitely want a rural area. And once this is all over and done with, I'll be okay. But it is just so much work clearing out this house, getting rid of all this junk. We're having another yard sale this weekend.
I can imagine.
And it doesn't help the
fact
fact
that... Well, I'm going to let you go then.
It doesn't help that Claire
has... Okay, I'm going to let you go then, Mr.
All right.
Rivera.
All right, we're going to let you go there, Tom.
Thank you. Keep up the good work, brother.
I'm sorry, this was Ray in Kansas. Yeah, and it doesn't help
keep up the good work.
I will. Anyways, I said it doesn't help that Claire, of course, has her back injury. And earlier this week, I really messed up my back. So fortunately, we're hiring somebody who's going to be helping us with the yard sale on Saturday. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. Todd in Long Beach, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I'd like to point out to everybody that we always build our science and discoveries on other people that have already done the work. Hence Archimedes, Aristotle, Madame Curie, Mary Awning, Andre Marie Ampère. You know, we can go down the list. Many, just like you yourself said, that there's many non-Jews that have taken the position of being non-Jew, like Jagadish Chandra Bose. He's from India, Robert Boyle, you know, throughout all time. But I always think it's so funny that when these people get a Nobel Peace Prize, they built their work on previous work. So that previous work, why isn't all that being given accolades to the person receiving such a prize, considering the fact that they're using other people's work to get that Nobel Prize?
Well, remember, copying one scientific paper.
Here's how I know this. I went to college with a guy, or high school, and now he's a professor, a well-known professor in protein genetics and protein folding. The man's a super genius. I think by now he has 2 or 3 PhDs, a very close friend of mine, okay? But he said, had I not understood what I was doing in high school, I would have never been able to do what I'm doing now. But it's like a building system, and I always thought that the university system here in the United States was kind of a model for failure from a certain period on, considering the fact that when we look at how and why we're taught, I actually like the European model better. If you're going to go into a field, go specifically in that field. You don't need the history, the English, basket weaving, underwater, dive picking, and whatever else. You want to, and that's why a lot of people, I have friends that went out of the United States, like to Kit Island, Grenada is another one, where the was under Reagan. These were places that you can go and do an impacted study and get basically you become a doctor in 2 years, but you literally go to bed at 1 and you get up at 5. That's how you run your life for 2 years. The islands are small, so you're not going anywhere, and it's very massive, intensive study. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I'm wondering about Epstein and if there is going to be anything about his shutdown of his place in New Mexico. And I have a specific reason about this state. My wife actually found out this. He has a place in New Mexico because you do not have to register as a sex offender.
Yes.
That's something to ponder. So I would hope to God that, Epstein sits on a pile of information. His cash is being taken out. The one in Manhattan, that's where they got the information with the place in Saudi Arabia that he owns, the Saudi Arabia, fake ID, visa there. The diamonds, people don't understand diamonds. Diamonds are easy to trade on the international market. People buy those things up like crazy. And then cash the splash. I mean, it's perfect James Bondish, if you ask me. And I'll bet you that he's going to try to buy Bubba and the entire assembly line out there at maybe the New York prison. We better watch out for this. Maybe what they need to do is rotate everybody out of that prison that works there and switch another group. And, that's what they did with Charles Manson. Nobody was a regular key jockey for that guy. They rotated them. They could only take him like 3 to 6 months at a pop. And then, boom, rotate out. And that's a known fact. Okay, so I'm hoping that he doesn't buy literally the prison and his way out the back door. Okay? He may know enough people, he may not. But from what I've seen, he rigged Acosta. Acosta is blown. We just need to know what the backdoor deal was. Because as far as I'm concerned, Acosta let the witnesses set up for failure. He set, I hate to say it, 30 plus witnesses. We know of 30, but I think there's more coming out now. I think you've heard that too.
Well,
So
Acosta said during this confirmation with the White House, he said that he was literally told to back off from Epstein because Epstein was intelligence. Didn't say which one, but said he was intelligence. So, Acosta's a good bureaucrat. He does what he's supposed to. Does what he's told.
But isn't just that to me is the deflection and obfuscation of his fiduciary duties, because once a case is created, it creates, people don't realize this, it creates a stock. It literally becomes a stock on the stock exchange. You can look it up on Fidelity Financials and do your own research. I'm not going to do it for you. But when a case like this is made, it becomes a fiduciary. That's why they call it accounting. British Accounting Registry. each case becomes a stock, a bond, whatever it falls under, whatever it is. And, like the OJ going to the Las Vegas prison there, or, outside of Las Vegas, that's a stock. Somebody has stock on him in a prison. Okay?
Okay.
That's the same thing with, so I'm wondering if the stock is so high of him staying in prison with these backdoor things that they're not going to let him go because that the stock is too high for him to stay in. However, with people being bought out like Acosta, I can't see anything in New York that I like. It's so Democrat wasteland.
It
with
really
the
is.
corruption.
Anyway, listen, Todd, need to let you go. Need to do a commercial break. Back with one more phone call in our final segment after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today here, and we're going to go back to the phones to Chris in Clearwater, Florida. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, since you said you're having a yard sale, I wanted to offer you and the audience some tips and to make it as successful as possible, because I'm an online merchant who does yard sales every once in a while for the lower price items that really aren't worth the time to post ads online. Put price tags on everything, because if there are not price tags, folks tend to not want to ask the price for fear of negotiation and rejection. So if you have price tags, they'll tend to buy more even if they don't really need the items, and tend to just walk up to you and merchandise in hand, cash in hand, and pay the full asking price and walk away. To prevent shoplifting, have at least 2 pairs of eyes and cameras. Don't be distracted by friends of patrons or visitors, because they'll often pull that tactic. Or don't let their children pick up stuff or romp around on your stuff unless their guardian is really interested. You ask them if they're interested in buying an item. Insist that the children do not romp around or pick up stuff, that they put it down. That's another way they distract or steal things. And on Craigslist or OfferUp, post your ads with as many photos as possible once you are set up. Advertise that you accept credit cards or debit cards through PayPal or Venmo or Pyrex or some other service. Put up signs with big fat letters. And if you don't have enough table space or shelf space, you can at a dollar store get plastic tarps. They call them drop cloths. And they're thin, that are not very durable, for $1 each, or you can get thicker ones for $4, and you can put your merchandise on the ground that you want to sell. So you can, if you have the space in your yard and you don't have enough shelf space or table space, you can do that. That's what I tend to do, since I have so many things. And then once your yard sale is over, you can offer to sell whatever's left over as a lot, and say, well, here's a bunch of flea market stuff. You can have a grand old time at the flea market with what's left over.
Yeah, those are all good suggestions, and we're already using most of them, including the price tags. We got the pre-printed price tags, and we've got computer printed labels on some of the stuff. Most of the high-tech stuff went in the first sale 2 weeks ago. So today is mostly, or the Saturday is mostly about, there's some musical instruments that are going, some audio equipment, microphones, cables, that kind of thing. And in our final yard sale, which is just before the moving van gets here, is where we'll unload like the last of the laptops and everything. So, Chris, thank you for.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to need it, and like I said, it's rough going with Claire and I being as old as we are, because I've been through a move before, and it just wasn't this rough. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. I got to do Jim Goddard up in Vancouver. Then I got to run errands. And then I got to find a rack to put this back on. All right, so we'll be back Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots to share with you. Donate to Republic Broadcasting. Donate to What Really Happened. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.